The day they rejected my company was the day my true plan for their downfall began. The digital ticker above the trading floor pulsed with a malevolent red, screaming a number that represented billions. Aegis Tech Solutions stock had just soared to an unprecedented height, a new market cap announced with blaring sirens and confetti on the financial news channels. Alden Thorne, the architect of this latest triumph, stood on a makeshift stage in the heart of their opulent lobby, bathed in the glow of 1,000 camera flashes. His smile was a predatory, self-satisfied smirk, his arms raised in a gesture of absolute victory. He wasn't looking at the crowd, or the camera lenses. His gaze, sharp and triumphant, was fixed directly on Kael, standing almost imperceptibly at the periphery, a forgotten ghost in a room full of adulation. He had just announced their latest strategic acquisition, a move that solidified their chokehold on the energy tech sector. It was a company Kael knew well, one that, in an alternate reality, Lumen Dynamics might have partnered with. Alden's eyes met Kael's, a fleeting moment of pure, unadulterated contempt and a hint of a question. Are you seeing this, boy? This is what true power looks like. Thorne raised a champagne flute, his lips forming silent words Kael could almost hear, echoing the insult he had hurled at him months ago, insignificant. The word, a casual flick of a verbal wrist, still resonated in Kael's memory, a branding iron on his ambition. A collective cheer erupted, drowning out the faint hum of the servers that powered this empire. Kael's own hands, tucked casually into his pockets, did not clench. His jaw remained relaxed. There was no visible flicker of anger, no sign of defeat. Instead, a peculiar calm settled over him, a quiet, almost imperceptible satisfaction. For Kael, the thought crystallized within him, what Alden Thorne saw as his ultimate victory, he understood to be merely the most visible signpost of his impending, meticulously orchestrated unraveling. Thorne was celebrating the grand opening of the very trap Kael had spent months, years, perfecting. He saw a peak, Kael saw the precipice. And the irony of it all was, Thorne had handed him the very tools to dig his grave the day he first dismissed him. To understand the quiet confidence that settled over Kael in that roaring hall, one must first understand the depth of the humiliation, the purity of the ambition, and the meticulousness of the preparation that preceded it. Kael was 28 years old, and Lumen Dynamics was not just a company to him, it was the distilled essence of every late night, every rejected grant application, every sacrificed social event since he was a teenager. His fascination with energy began early, watching his grandmother, a retired electrical engineer, tinker with old radios and talk about the invisible currents that powered the world. Her small inheritance, a sum he guarded fiercely, had been the seed money for Lumen Dynamics. He had poured his life savings and 7 years of relentless, almost obsessive research into it. His apartment was a sparse, utilitarian space, its walls plastered with flowcharts and energy consumption models. His diet consisted largely of instant noodles and coffee. His social life was non-existent. All of it, every single sacrifice, was for Lumen Dynamics, a groundbreaking energy optimization software, powered by an AI he named Aura, that could learn and adapt to the most complex energy grids, reducing waste by factors previously thought impossible. It wasn't just efficient, it was revolutionary. It was, Kael believed, the future. His initial approach to Aegis Tech Solutions wasn't born of desperation, but of strategic pragmatism. Alden Thorne was, despite his methods, undeniably powerful. A partnership with Aegis, or even a significant investment, would catapult Lumen Dynamics from a promising startup into a market force overnight. Kael envisioned a collaboration, leveraging their established infrastructure and market reach to deploy Aura on a scale that could genuinely impact global energy consumption. It was a grand vision, a genuine belief that it could benefit both companies, a naive hope for a symbiotic relationship in a cutthroat world. He had spent weeks preparing the pitch, refining every slide, rehearsing every word, convinced that the sheer logic and transformative potential of Aura would transcend corporate politics. The pitch meeting itself felt like entering an arena. Aegis Tech's headquarters loomed, a monolithic structure of glass and steel that seemed to mock the modest rented office space where Lumen Dynamics was born. Its polished surfaces reflected a cold, impersonal power, a stark contrast to the buzzing, collaborative chaos of Kael's small team. Alden Thorne sat at the head of a polished mahogany table, flanked by his stern-faced executives. He was precisely as Kael had imagined, impeccably dressed, radiating an aura of entitled disdain, his eyes like chips of ice. Kael remembered the air in the room, thick with Thorne's arrogance, almost palpable, pressing down like a physical weight. Kael began his presentation with an energy that he hoped conveyed both his passion and the undeniable logic of their solution. He spoke of the looming energy crisis, the inefficiencies plaguing legacy systems, and how Lumen Dynamics AI, Aura, could identify and rectify these issues in real time, achieving an average of 35% energy reduction in pilot programs. He showed them the data, the projections, the elegant simplicity of the user interface. He spoke of the potential for a new paradigm in energy management, one that would redefine the industry. He felt a surge of genuine excitement as he described Aura's self-learning capabilities, its ability to predict consumption patterns, and its almost sentient understanding of energy flow. He truly believed he was presenting a solution, not just a product. Thorne listened, or rather, he watched. His expression remained utterly unreadable, save for the occasional twitch of a sneer at the corner of his lips. He rarely made eye contact, preferring to gaze at some point just beyond Kael's shoulder, as if Kael himself were merely a distraction. When Kael finished, the silence in the room was deafening. No questions, no polite applause, nothing. A heavy, oppressive quiet settled. Then, Thorne leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, his fingers steepled. "So, Mr. Kael," he drawled, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that barely disguised his condescension, "you're telling me this Aura, developed by a company operating out of a shared co-working space, can do what our multi-billion-dollar R&D department, staffed by the industry's brightest minds, has yet to achieve?" His tone implied not just skepticism, but an accusation of audacious idiocy. Kael maintained his composure, a tremor of frustration passing briefly through him. "With respect, Mr. Thorne, innovation often springs from agility, not just scale. Our approach is fundamentally different. Aura learns, adapts, predicts. It's not just a system, it's an evolving intelligence." He tried to keep his voice steady, refusing to betray the sting of Thorne's dismissal. Thorne chuckled, a short, humorless sound that grated on Kael's ears. "Evolving intelligence. Right. He's heard this kind of starry-eyed idealism before," he seemed to imply. Young men, fresh out of university, convinced they've stumbled upon the Holy Grail. You've got a fancy algorithm, a slick demo, and not a single major corporate deployment under your belt. Our clients, Mr. Kael, demand proven solutions, not academic exercises. His executives chuckled along with him, a chorus of obsequious agreement. It was a carefully orchestrated humiliation, designed to crush Kael's spirit and dismiss his work as inconsequential. But it wasn't just about the put-down. As Thorne spoke, one of his lieutenants, a sharp-eyed man named Marcus, kept his gaze fixed on Kael's presentation slides, lingering on the technical specifications he had briefly displayed. Marcus asked seemingly innocuous questions about the data ingestion protocols, the specific AI learning models, and the scalability architecture. Kael answered them honestly, believing in the transparency of his work, foolishly thinking it was a genuine due diligence process. He even felt a flicker of hope that perhaps Marcus, at least, understood the value. Thorne waved a dismissive hand, cutting off Marcus mid-sentence. "Look, Mr. Kael, I appreciate your enthusiasm. But Aegis Tech doesn't invest in pipe dreams. We acquire established entities, or we crush competitors. You, my boy, are neither. You're a nuisance, at best. Go back to your garage, tinker with your Aura. Perhaps in a decade, if you manage to survive, we might consider buying your patents for pennies on the dollar. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have real business to attend to." The rejection was absolute, brutal, and humiliating. As Kael gathered his materials, his hands trembling slightly despite his efforts to control them, Thorne added, his voice low enough for only Kael to hear, and don't even think about trying to compete directly. We'll bury you before you even break ground. It was a threat, a promise of corporate annihilation delivered with the casual indifference of swatting a fly. Kael felt a cold knot form in his stomach, a mix of disbelief and seething indignation. Kael walked out of that building, not defeated, but transformed. The humiliation had not broken him, it had tempered him, hardening his resolve into something unbreakable. The raw ache of dismissal, the casual cruelty of Thorne's words, ignited a new, colder intensity within him. The fire of ambition that had always burned within him now raged with a focused, almost surgical precision. It was no longer just about building Lumen Dynamics into a successful company. It became about understanding Alden Thorne, understanding Aegis Tech, and meticulously dissecting their vulnerabilities. He wanted to bury Kael. Kael would unearth every weakness in Thorne's sprawling, calcified empire and expose it to the light. The nuisance would become the architect of his downfall. His secret weapon wasn't a hidden technology or a powerful ally. It was a shift in perspective, a commitment to a new kind of strategic warfare. It was the realization that Aegis Tech, for all its colossal size and apparent impregnability, was a dinosaur. It relied on outdated infrastructure, its market dominance was built on acquisitions rather than genuine innovation, and its internal processes were bloated and inefficient. The very questions Marcus had asked, the information they had subtly tried to glean, revealed their own technological stagnation. They needed what Kael had, but their hubris prevented them from acknowledging it, choosing instead to try and steal it or dismiss it. That, Kael realized, was their Achilles heel. They were so busy acquiring and crushing, they had forgotten how to innovate. Kael's plan began the moment he stepped out of their building. It was not a plan of direct confrontation, but of strategic infiltration and exposure. He would not compete on their terms, he would redefine the battlefield. His research shifted from energy optimization to corporate intelligence. He devoured every public document, every obscure industry forum, every financial report pertaining to Aegis Tech. He delved into their quarterly earnings calls, dissecting the language, reading between the lines of Thorne's boastful pronouncements. He studied their acquisition histories, noting patterns of poor integration and the rapid depreciation of acquired assets. He mapped their supply chain dependencies, identifying bottlenecks and single points of failure. He built a comprehensive map of their weaknesses, their reliance on legacy hardware, the alarming security vulnerabilities in their widely used energy management platform, a product of a particularly ill-fated acquisition 5 years prior, their monopolistic contracts that stifled innovation from smaller players, and perhaps most crucially, their internal culture of complacency fostered by Thorne's iron grip. He realized that while their external facade was impenetrable, their internal structure was a complex web of outdated systems and over-reliance on a few critical, yet unoptimized, components. They were like a colossal ship with a rusting rudder and leaky hull, hidden beneath layers of fresh paint, sailing confidently towards an iceberg Kael alone could see. His secret weapon was the profound, almost intimate understanding of these critical vulnerabilities, coupled with Lumen Dynamics' unique ability to exploit them, not with an attack, but with a superior, more elegant solution that would expose their flaws simply by existing. The plan unfolded in silent, methodical steps. Kael didn't launch a public campaign against Aegis Tech. He didn't issue angry press releases. He worked. His team, small but fiercely loyal and incredibly talented, knew nothing of the deeper, vindictive layer of his strategy. They believed they were simply building the best energy optimization software on the planet, and they were. Kael had assembled a diverse group: Anya, a brilliant data scientist with an uncanny knack for pattern recognition, Ben, a seasoned engineer whose pragmatism grounded their most ambitious ideas, and Clara, a tireless operations manager who kept their small ships sailing smoothly. They trusted Kael implicitly, drawn by his passion and the undeniable genius of Aura. But Kael's focus was always dual-layered. Every feature, every partnership, every public statement Lumen Dynamics made was designed not just to advance their company, but to subtly, incrementally, expose a specific weakness in Aegis Tech's armor. First, Kael focused on securing strategic partnerships with mid-sized energy providers and industrial complexes, the ones Aegis Tech considered too small to bother with, but which collectively represented significant market share. He knew these companies often felt neglected by the giants, burdened by expensive contracts and slow, unresponsive support. Lumen Dynamics offered them not just their Aura software, but an unparalleled level of dedicated support and customization. Kael personally oversaw every major deal, ensuring each client felt valued and understood. These clients, often frustrated by Aegis Tech's bureaucratic inflexibility and exorbitant pricing, welcomed Lumen Dynamics with open arms. They became their proof of concept, their testimonials, and crucially, the silent, growing network of discontent against the industry giant. A rural utility in Montana, a mid-sized manufacturing plant in the Midwest, a regional data center, each success story added a quiet hum of validation to Lumen Dynamics' growing reputation. Kael initiated a series of white papers and academic collaborations, focusing on the future of energy grids. These papers, though seemingly innocuous, highlighted the critical importance of adaptive AI systems and the inherent vulnerabilities of static, legacy infrastructure, precisely the kind of infrastructure Aegis Tech relied upon. He worked with respected researchers, carefully framing the questions and presenting the data in a way that was unimpeachable. These publications created a quiet but persistent undercurrent of doubt within the industry, subtly questioning the long-term viability of Aegis Tech's offerings without ever naming them directly. Industry analysts began citing Lumen Dynamics research, discussing the need for next-generation optimization and proactive grid management, concepts Aura embodied, and Kronos certainly did not. Alden Thorne, of course, noticed none of this. He was too busy acquiring smaller companies, expanding his conglomerate, believing his iron grip on the market was unshakable. He probably saw Lumen Dynamics as a minor, buzzing gnat, easily ignored. His arrogance, fueled by constant growth and unchallenged dominance, grew exponentially. Kael monitored Thorne's public appearances, his investor calls, noting the increasing grandiosity of his pronouncements, the utter lack of self-reflection. Thorne continued to make public statements about the unsustainable ventures of startups, implicitly deriding companies like Lumen Dynamics. He believed Kael's silence was weakness, a sign that he had accepted his place as an insignificant player. He saw Kael's focused work as a sign of struggling, not of strategic maneuvering. His ego, Kael understood, was his greatest vulnerability. The critical vulnerability Kael targeted most fiercely was Aegis Tech's reliance on a single, aging, and highly complex energy management platform, Kronos. They had acquired it years ago, integrating it poorly with their other systems, a hasty absorption that resulted in a Frankenstein's monster of code. Kronos was the backbone of their energy division, but it was inefficient, prone to security flaws due to its convoluted codebase, and prohibitively expensive to maintain or upgrade. Kael's plan was to make Aura so superior, so demonstrably secure and efficient, that Kronos would become not just obsolete, but a liability. He poured resources into developing a feature within Aura that could seamlessly integrate with, and then optimize, even the most archaic energy systems, including those that Kronos struggled with. This was crucial. Kael wasn't asking clients to rip out their existing Aegis Tech infrastructure, he was offering them a way to make it perform dramatically better, or even allow them to migrate away from it with unprecedented ease when they were ready. The subtle message was, you don't need to replace your entire system, you just need to unleash its true potential, or effortlessly transition to something better. His team, particularly Anya, spent countless hours reverse engineering Kronos's notoriously opaque protocols, creating compatibility layers that defied industry expectations. Kael's team also started a discreet but persistent campaign of educational outreach to key industry regulators and policymakers. He assigned Clara to this, knowing her calm demeanor and meticulous attention to detail would be essential. They presented data on energy waste, on systemic vulnerabilities, and on the benefits of AI-driven optimization, always emphasizing transparency and long-term sustainability. They never mentioned Aegis Tech directly, but the implications were clear. Current industry standards were falling short, and a paradigm shift was needed. These regulators, seeing the independent data and Lumen Dynamics' innovative solutions, began to ask tougher questions of the established players, particularly those using older, less secure platforms. Kael knew the regulatory wheels turned slowly, but the seeds of doubt, once planted, would inevitably grow. Aegis Tech's quarterly earnings calls became increasingly predictable. Thorne would boast about revenue growth, almost exclusively driven by acquisitions and legacy contracts. He rarely spoke of innovation. Meanwhile, Lumen Dynamics was quietly gaining traction, not in a flashy, headline-grabbing way, but through word of mouth, through tangible results for their growing client base. They were beneath Thorne's radar, precisely where Kael wanted to be. Thorne was focused on the vast, slow-moving tankers of the industry, while Kael was building a fleet of nimble, silent submarines. The climax arrived on a humid Tuesday morning, not in a boardroom, but at the annual Global Energy Innovation Summit, the premier event for the industry. Aegis Tech was, as always, the main sponsor, their logo plastered everywhere, dominating the exhibition hall. Thorne was scheduled to deliver the keynote address, ostensibly on the future of energy infrastructure. Kael had secured a smaller, less prominent slot on a panel discussion about disruptive technologies in energy management. It was exactly where he wanted to be, overlooked, yet poised to strike. He felt a nervous flutter, quickly suppressed, replaced by the familiar cold resolve. This was the moment. Thorne's keynote was precisely what Kael expected. Grandiose, self-congratulatory, filled with buzzwords but devoid of genuine innovation. He spoke of Aegis Tech's unparalleled market leadership and hinted at a new, vaguely defined, multi-platform integration initiative that was meant to be their next big thing, an initiative Kael knew from his research was a desperate, belated attempt to patch holes in their Chronos system. He ended his speech with a flourish, inviting everyone to visit the Aegis Tech booth for an exclusive preview of tomorrow's energy solutions. The audience offered polite, but unenthusiastic, applause. Then it was Kael's turn. He walked onto the stage, a stark contrast to Thorne's bombast. He sat on a panel with two esteemed academics and a policy advisor, all of whom had, at various times, reviewed Lumen Dynamics' white papers. When the moderator turned to him, Kael took a deep breath, the microphone feeling strangely heavy in his hand. For too long, he began, his voice calm, clear, and projected confidently through the microphone, the energy sector has been defined by monolithic, inflexible systems. We've been told that efficiency means replacing everything, or accepting marginal improvements. He paused, letting his gaze sweep over the packed auditorium, knowing Alden Thorne was likely watching from a VIP box, or perhaps even in the audience, though Kael couldn't pinpoint him. At Lumen Dynamics, Kael continued, we believe in a different path. We believe in intelligent optimization, in systems that adapt, learn, and predict. And today, Kael is not just talking about theory. He is going to show you a practical, real-world application. On the large screen behind him, Kael initiated a live demonstration. Not of Aura's general capabilities, but of a specific, new module they had just released, the Aura Legacy Bridge. This module, Kael explained, was designed to seamlessly integrate with and optimize any existing energy management platform, regardless of its age or complexity. And then, he dropped the bomb. To demonstrate its power, Kael said, his voice unwavering, Lumen Dynamics has partnered with a major metropolitan utility. They currently run a legacy system that many of you might be familiar with, a system known for its robust, if sometimes inefficient, operations, Chronos. A ripple went through the audience. Chronos. Everyone knew Chronos. It was Aegis Tech's flagship, its Achilles heel Kael intended to expose. Gasps, whispers, a sudden shift in posture from hundreds of people. Kael saw a man in the front row, clearly an Aegis executive, stiffen, his eyes widening in disbelief. On the left side of the screen, Kael continued, pointing, you'll see a live feed of their current energy consumption data, directly from their Chronos system. And on the right, you'll see the same data, flowing through our Aura Legacy Bridge module, processing in real time. The numbers flickered onto the screen. The Chronos raw data stream showed the expected fluctuations, the inefficiencies, the energy spikes inherent in an aging grid. But the Aura-optimized data stream, running concurrently, was a marvel of stability and efficiency. Energy consumption dipped, stabilized, and flattened in ways that seemed almost miraculous. The reduction wasn't marginal, it was consistently, undeniably, dramatically lower. As you can see, Kael stated, his voice calm, almost understated, the Aura legacy bridge, without replacing a single piece of the utility's existing Chronos hardware, has achieved an immediate, consistent 28% reduction in overall energy waste. This isn't theoretical, this is real-time. This isn't an upgrade, it's an intelligent overlay that unlocks the latent potential of any system. The implications hit the audience like a tidal wave. Kael wasn't just showing a better product. He was demonstrating that Aegis Tech's flagship system, the very foundation of their energy empire, was not only inefficient but that its inefficiencies could be rectified by Kael's software, without the need for their expensive, protracted, and often unsuccessful upgrades. He was showing them that their emperor, Chronos, had no clothes, and that Kael had the tailor to dress it, or simply replace it with something far better. The stunned silence was broken by a sudden, angry outburst from the VIP box. Kael saw Alden Thorne, his face contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated fury and shock, rising to his feet, gesticulating wildly. He was shouting something incomprehensible, probably curses, but the microphone was off. He had been utterly, completely blindsided. The master strategist, the ruthless acquirer, had been outmaneuvered by the insignificant nuisance. A quiet, cold satisfaction spread through Kael, a feeling of absolute vindication. The moment the panel concluded, the auditorium erupted. Not in polite applause, but in a chaotic surge of people rushing towards the stage. Industry executives, analysts, journalists, they weren't just curious, they were invigorated. Kael's quiet, strategic campaign had found its voice. The whispers turned into shouts. Reporters swarmed him, thrusting microphones into his face, demanding comments. Kael, composed, offered carefully worded statements, letting the data speak for itself. The fallout was immediate and devastating for Aegis Tech. The stock market reacted with brutal efficiency. Within hours of Kael's presentation, Aegis Tech stock began to plummet. Analysts, armed with the new, undeniable evidence of Chronos' inefficiency and Aura's superiority, downgraded their ratings. The multi-platform integration initiative Thorne had boasted about hours earlier was exposed for what it was, a desperate, half-baked attempt to fix a fundamentally flawed system. The financial news channels, which had celebrated Thorne's recent acquisition, now dissected Aegis Tech's vulnerabilities with predatory glee. They replayed snippets of Kael's presentation, contrasting his calm, data-driven approach with Thorne's arrogant, dismissive demeanor from past interviews. The narrative shifted from Aegis Tech, industry leader, to Aegis Tech, obsolete dinosaur. The major metropolitan utility, Lumen Dynamics live demo partner, released a press statement within 24 hours confirming the efficacy of Aura Legacy Bridge and announcing their intention to expand its deployment across their entire network. This was the final nail in the coffin. If a major utility could achieve such results without uprooting their entire system, why would anyone continue to invest in Aegis Tech's expensive, proprietary, and now demonstrably inferior solutions? The dominoes began to fall. Existing Aegis Tech clients began to demand explanations, reevaluate their contracts, and, in many cases, quietly began pilot programs with Lumen Dynamics. Smaller companies, once wary of Thorne's predatory tactics, now saw an opportunity. They aligned with Lumen Dynamics, forming a powerful, agile counterforce to Aegis Tech's crumbling dominance. The very market forces Thorne had manipulated for years now turned against him. Lawsuits from disgruntled shareholders began to surface, alleging gross mismanagement and a failure to adapt to market changes. Kael heard through the grapevine that Thorne was in a constant state of rage, his executives terrified to approach him. The once feared empire was cracking under the weight of its own inertia and the precision of Kael's quiet assault. Thorne's attempts to acquire smaller competitors now met with open derision. No one wanted to be bought by a sinking ship. The irony was palpable. He wanted to crush Kael, but by trying to do so, he had merely provided the catalyst for his own slow, agonizing collapse. The information Thorne had tried to glean from Kael's presentation months ago had become a mirror reflecting his company's deep-seated inadequacies. It has been 3 years since that summit. Lumen Dynamics is no longer a promising startup. It is a global leader in energy optimization. They operate from a vibrant, modern campus, designed for collaboration and innovation, a stark contrast to Aegis's sterile corporate monolith. Their success is built on genuine innovation, transparent practices, and a culture of continuous improvement, values born directly from the antithesis of Alden Thorne's worldview. They have partnerships with utilities and industries across continents. Their Aura software has become an industry standard, and their impact on global energy efficiency is measurable and significant. Kael now leads a thriving enterprise, his days filled not with vindictive planning, but with the genuine challenges of scaling a revolutionary technology and fostering a truly collaborative team. Alden Thorne is still the CEO of Aegis Tech Solutions, but it is a shadow of its former self. Their stock price has stabilized at a fraction of its peak, their market share has eroded significantly, and they are constantly battling internal dissent and external pressure from increasingly scrutinizing regulators. Their acquisitions have ceased, replaced by divestitures of non-performing assets. The company is, by all accounts, in a slow, painful decline, a testament to the fact that brute force and arrogance cannot sustain an empire built on outdated foundations. Kael is often asked if he feels vindicated, if he revels in Thorne's downfall. And his answer is always the same: no. The initial sting of humiliation faded long ago, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. His goal was never simply revenge, it was to prove a point. It was to demonstrate that true power doesn't lie in crushing others, but in the relentless pursuit of innovation, in understanding the deepest intricacies of a problem, and in the strategic application of intellect. The world is too complex, too interconnected, for single-minded dominance to truly last. True victory isn't about destroying your opponent, it's about building something so profoundly superior that their very existence becomes irrelevant. It's about letting the light of Kael's own creation expose the shadows of Thorne's complacency. And in that, Kael found his peace, and his purpose. If you enjoyed this story of strategic triumph and the quiet power of innovation, be sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications for more narratives like this. What do you think was Alden Thorne's biggest mistake? And what did Kael do best to turn his humiliation into a victory? Share your thoughts in the comments below.